It's McIntyre in the Morning with Doug McIntyre and Terry Ray Elmer.
This story broke a couple days ago, and we wanted to dig into it because it's so disgraceful. This is why you should not build statues to the living. And we should not have the names of any politicians on these buildings while they're still with us. The Dennis Zine Community Center in the San Fernando Valley, please. But Joe Paterno, as you know, Joe Pa was the legendary, iconic coach of Penn State University for 1,000,000 years. They had a statue of him outside the stadium. And, you know, the rep was that Penn State was a football program with a university attached to it. And then Jerry Sandusky, his assistant, all of these sexual abuse allegations exploded. He's in jail for the rest of his life. And now we're learning that at least 6 other Penn State coaches going back years also knew about Jerry Sandusky, including Joe Paterno, and did nothing about it. To talk to us about it is a gentleman who's been involved in, of course, the Miramonte case of sexual abuse, and he is an attorney and a CNN legal analyst, and it's a pleasure to welcome back to you, Brian Claypool. Brian, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back, Doug and T-Rex.
Well, we're happy to have you, and
except for the topic.
So this, I guess this.
No. And before you even start, let your listeners know I am a Penn State graduate.
All right. So, well, then you live there, and you know, and I'm sure appreciated Joe Paterno because who knew about any of this, right, at the time?
Yeah, Doug. Yeah, he not only is he legendary as far as a football coach, but I remember walking through the grocery stores in western Pennsylvania where I grew up, and there were Joe Paterno pizzas that were for sale in the frozen section of the grocery store.
Yeah.
That's how legendary this guy was.
And this comes out of, we're learning about this because it's a dispute over who should pay Penn State's share of the $60 million settlement that they made with the 26 men who said that Sandusky abused them. And whether it should be the university or its insurance company, and the insurance company had documentation.
Yes, I think they had documentation of an alleged report back in 1976, so way far back, of a young man who had reported child abuse to Penn State administrators. The reason why the insurance companies are doing that, Doug, is because they want to try to argue, well, wait a minute, whoever was the insurance company back in 1976 should be responsible for footing the bill because Penn State's on notice at that point in time. But I think bigger than that, this raises a question as to whether this investigation of Penn State, remember the free report that came out last year, should that be reopened? Should there be another investigation of Penn State? Should other coaches or administrators who may have been aware of the alleged abuse that Sandusky was carrying out back in the 70s and 80s be criminally prosecuted? You know, I've spent the last decade, as you mentioned, fighting for kids victims of child sexual abuse. And I will tell you, I'm going to go to my grave making this statement, that unless we start prosecuting criminally administrators, coaches, whomever, who are aware of child abuse, and they do nothing, they are facilitating the commission of child sexual abuse. They need to be criminally prosecuted if we want to make change.
Now, can you tell me, Brian, why would the insurance company have these documents? Why would the insurance company have documents about allegations of sexual abuse involving Jerry Sandusky going back to the 1970s?
Well, that's a great question, but shame on that insurance company if they truly do have any evidence of a child reporting sexual abuse in 1976. Where in the world was that information when the free report was going on? Why wasn't that looked into? There should be an investigation of that insurance company for not providing this information in a timely manner.
We're talking with Brian Claypool, who you can follow on Twitter at Brian_Claypool. Now, here's the thing. I've always thought that this scandal is, the scope of this is so much larger than Penn State. And I base that unsubstantiated theory, by the way, on the fact that Jerry Sandusky was Joe Paterno's top assistant for 30 years. and nobody ever offered him a head coaching job. And you know, when you in the small insular world of big time Division I college sports, if you come from an enormously winning program, a program that wins year after year after year after year after year, where do they go for when a school is struggling? Where do they go to find a new head coach? They look to the winning programs and they look to the assistants and they hire the assistants.
Not
and yet,
this one.
Jerry Sandusky, nobody touched him. Why is that?
Well, that's a great point. I never even actually thought about that. Maybe that suggests that more people
knew about this
than at Penn State knew about that. Maybe people at other universities caught wind of this, and they too did nothing about it. You know, let me share a quick story with you. I was clearing out my documents here at the house last night, and ironically, I came across a letter that I had written a response, from the U.S. Department of Justice to a letter I wrote to President Obama in the Miramonte case saying, we need to open a federal investigation. We need to criminally prosecute those accountable at LAUSD. And I actually got a letter from the U.S. Department of Justice, and they said, yeah, we're going to open a file. And then nothing happened. I mean, it just reminded me of Penn State. Whatever happened to the criminal investigation of, I think his name's Tim Curley, the athletic director.
Right.
Whatever happened to the investigation criminally of Graham Spanier, the former Penn State president? What are we going to do now about administrators who might have known back in 1976? We continue to do nothing, yet we have this big uproar about Corey Lewandowski. He should be prosecuted criminally for grabbing Michelle Fields' wrist. We had a national discussion, Doug and T-Ray, about that, but we can't have any criminal investigations or indictments of people who help predators abuse children.
No, I totally agree. And we need to know who the other coaches were and what programs are they currently working for.
Absolutely.
Brian, as always, thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much.
You bet.
Brian Claypool.
Thanks for having me.
All right, 824.